Wait, what's this? Single player games are dying out and nobody likes them. When you lose over $3 billion in stock over a game that refused to learn from its predecessor's mistakes and kill off another treasured game developing company, you're bound to say some stupid shit. Oh yeah, single player games are dying out, and I guess that explains why Spider-Man for the PS4 is currently the 7th best-selling PS4 game. God of War? More like God of Snore, because single player games are dying out and nobody likes them. Red Dead Redemption 2? Nobody likes that game. They definitely haven't been looking forward to it because single player games are dying out and nobody likes them. Hey EA, how about you just admit that you're greedy and you're trying to make excuses as to why you refuse to take the time to release competitive single player titles? I'm your local man, Fox's Pancakes, and today I'm going to be reviewing a lovely little single-player game that nobody likes, known as Ori and the Blind Forest. Ori and the Blind Forest was created and developed by a small indie company known as Moon Studios. The company was founded in 2010 by Thomas Mahler, a former cinematic artist for Blizzard Entertainment, and Gennady Korol, former senior graphics engineer at Animation Lab. Upon foundation, Moon Studios immediately started on a game that they called War Soup, which aimed to be a hybrid between a real-time strategy style of game and a first-person shooter. However, in 2011, Moon Studios began work on Ori and the Blind Forest, netting themselves a distribution deal with Microsoft in the process. This ultimately pushed their initial project War Soup to the side, despite having released a preview for the game on the Moon Studios YouTube channel and a preview from game reviewing site Rock Paper Shotgun. From what I can tell, Moon Studios went quiet between the years of 2011 and 2014 as they worked hard to release their game. I mean, I at least assume they were working hard because despite my efforts, I can't find anything relating to any of their progress or any meaningful media posts between those years. All was quiet until the game was officially announced at E3 2014, which also came with a playable demo of the game at the time. It was around this time that I started gaining an interest in game reviews and conventions, though I was quick to learn that most games that were rated highly by sites like IGN weren't always the greatest. As such, when the game officially launched in March 2015, I was wholly uninterested in buying a game that was rated so highly with little to no actual discussion about the game itself included. So I just pulled up the IGN review of Ori and the Blind Forest back when it was first released in 2015. Or wait, when was this written? Was this 2015? Yeah, March of 2015. It was 2 days before its release. Some of the wording, especially in this second paragraph, is hilarious. Well, and of course, like I said, or am going to say, anybody only ever talks about how it looks. First paragraph, it's stunningly pretty. And tugs at the heartstrings. Leave that to your own interpretation, I guess. But I find this sentence particularly hilarious, which let Ori pull off moves like like Ori has a damn skateboard, and also to slingshot himself. Ori is a female character, which. Don't know how obvious they had to make that, but Ori is a she. Anyway, back to the rest of the video. As far as gameplay is concerned, Ori and the Blind Forest is a platform adventure style game that fits into this odd genre known as Metroidvania. The name Metroidvania is a reference to a combination of map exploration offered in the Metroid games and the non-linear adventure style popularized by early Castlevania games. Other games similar in playstyle include the likes of Hollow Knight, Guacamelee, and Dead Cells, just to name a few. The story of the game is pretty simple. You play as Ori, a small guardian spirit of the forest, and your goal is to restore the forest to its natural order. Why? Because some owl got really mad at this giant glowing tree and decided to steal its soul, sending the forest into chaos. I would explain more, but that would get us into a spoiler territory. You spend the game traversing a large map cluttered with varying obstacles which you deal with by gradually unlocking abilities. The nice thing about the game being on one singular map is that there are no loading times, which, funnily enough, is one of the few things that Thomas Mahler, co-creator of the game, tweeted about during Moon Studios' 2011 to 2014 hiatus. When it comes to gameplay, it's not unlike something you haven't played before. Most of the mechanics that you will encounter in this game have been done in other games before, though these things can't be really avoided when it comes to designing a platformer. Wall jumping, ground pounds, gliding, charged attacks, etc. Where I feel that the game is weakest in terms of gameplay is in its approach to combat. Throughout the game, you are accompanied by the ball of light that is the remnant of the soul that was torn from the tree at the beginning of the game. And visually, the attacks look great, but here's how it works mechanics-wise. Oh, hang on, I gotta move a bit to the side. Okay. It may be dull, but it's not nearly as frustrating as the wall jumping mechanic is, especially after you've gained the ability to double jump. The funny thing is that later in the game you're given the option to hold down a button and climb up walls, so why even implement the wall jump in the first place? Ori and the Blind Forest is unforgiving in regards to its save mechanic. Holding down E on PC will create a save point where you can upgrade your abilities in the ability tree. However, doing so forces you to use an energy cell, so if you either forget to save or have no energy cells to save your progress and you end up dying, you have to reset back at your last save point with no exceptions. My favorite mechanic in this game by far is the bash ability, where you right click to catch an enemy or a projectile and then use it to propel yourself in a target direction. This is first heavily implemented after you restore the first element, where you have to use it to swing from vine to vine, catching enemy projectiles left and right to avoid death by flash flood. Uh-oh. Okay, so we'll go here and... Yah! Ha! I am the video game master. I never die. That was a practice round. Alright, we have it this time. Shit. I didn't even double jump there. What do you mean? We're almost there. I can feel it. I am the ninja master. Oh my goodness, my heart is beating so damn fast. The main problem with the bash mechanic is that if you don't do it early enough and you freeze time right as an enemy hits you, you will receive whatever damage that enemy deals for every tick that you hold them there. Minor thing that really has to do with how terrible I am at video games, and honestly I have no other gameplay related comments. Aside from those few things, the game handles well, though if you've been watching the footage in the background, you'll notice that I've been avoiding discussing one glaringly obvious positive note, because it's what anyone ever talks about regarding this game, and it's something that you can see for yourself. Just like everyone else, I am a sucker for flashing lights and pretty sounds. Almost everything about how this game looks is perfect. The intricate design choices on each enemy and character, the clever usage of foreground and background layers, all the way down to the use of different colored backgrounds and different enemies used to differentiate from different areas of the map. Everything feels smooth and feels like it fits in well. Rayman Legends is another great platformer game that I heavily enjoyed playing on PS4 that has different enemies on a world-by-world basis. The first world has those witch-looking characters, the second has frogs, the third has skeletons, and the fourth has these things. In order to keep the game more refreshing though, the game opts into revamping levels that you've done before, but with enemies from a different world in them. The problem here is that the worlds in Rayman are so stylistically different that seeing the skeletons on the frog map is highly distracting. My point here is that even though Ori has a huge map to traverse and that enemies differ from area to area, there's never a point where you encounter an enemy and feel like they don't fit into that area. There's birds here, but there's not going to be birds here because birds don't belong in a swamp, just like how frogs shouldn't be in a world where lava is the main feature, Rayman Legends. You may have noticed that I said that almost everything is perfect in regards to how this game looks, which is true. The thing that I can't get past is how bright some of the particle effects get when you stack all of them on top of each other. Ori by herself is a bright light creature. Then, when you save on a Soul Link, it creates an even bigger light source that, when Ori walks over it, becomes even brighter. Combine this with the fact that the Spirit Light sends out curving rays of light, which, might I add, grow larger the more you upgrade them in the ability tree, which detonate with a small explosion of light every time they hit something. And so if you're in a particularly bright area of the map and combine all these things, you had better be wearing some solar eclipse glasses so that you don't burn your eyes out of your sockets. See, that was what we call a sarcastic use of hyperbole. I don't really mean that, but this game is very bright and it hurts to watch at times. Ori and the Blind Forest also shows us that you don't need a thumping, heroic soundtrack to make a good game. I know that I said something similar in my review of Starbound, but like I said, I am a sucker for pretty sounds. The soundtrack is simple and elegant. I've been using it as the background music for this video, and I'll just highlight it now. Like the different use of colors, this game uses different orchestral pieces to show off different parts of the map. A single flute with bells for this section, a double bass and cello over here, some keys and percussion over there. The icing on top of the cake is the overall cleanliness of the audio mixing. No sound feels like it has higher priority than it needs to, and nothing feels overcrowded. Even though the bash ability may be one of the loudest in the game next to attacking enemies, I can still hear the soundtrack going strong in the background. Finally, we get around to talking about the latter part of the game, or rather the reason as to why you're going on this grand quest. I gave you a brief description at the beginning of the video, the general synopsis of the game, but this section will dive deeper into what I think about the story, which involves some spoilers, so this is your official spoiler warning. If you want to skip spoilers, just jump to the timestamp provided on screen. The story of Ori and the Blind Forest starts off as being one of its strong points and ends up being sort of toward the end. At the very beginning, the Spirit Tree, a tree which keeps all the forest in balance, tells us through text and sounds, which we're to interpret as its voice, that a violent storm courses through the forest and tears Ori away from it. Naru, this goofy-looking creature, finds Ori and takes her in. They live together in happiness for a little while until this owl named Kuro swoops down and steals the life of the Spirit Tree, killing it and sending the rest of the forest into disrepair. Because of this, Naru and Ori die of starvation right at the beginning of the game, upon which Ori is resurrected by the last remnant of the Spirit Tree. Revived and filled with magical power juice, you are then the last guardian alive, and it is in your power to restore balance to the forest by returning the elements of water, warmth, and wind to their proper homes. Along the way, you discover that Kuro's actions were out of blind anger, as the light from the Spirit Tree ended up killing her owlets. In retaliation, she tore the light from the Spirit Tree in hopes of protecting her still unhatched outlet. You then meet this creature, also known as Gumo, who turns out to be the last of his kind left, because Kuro stealing the Spirit Light causes the entire race in the mountain to freeze over, and since the last of his kind, he takes the light from the mountain and uses its spirit juice to revive Naru, who died at the beginning of the game. I don't know about anyone else, but I think it's a much more impactful on the story if the character whom you see die an emotional death stays dead. It's the whole reason why the death of the general in Mulan was even remotely impactful, because not only did we have a character connected to the parental figure, but we also knew at the time that they probably weren't going to be coming back. Captain Zhang's story in Mulan then became about carrying on his father's honor and remembrance of him. Ori's story has a similar coming-of-age story, but as soon as they resurrect Naru, it feels like Ori hasn't made any progress as a character because she's right back where she started the story. With all that in mind, I think that Ori and the Blind Forest is a great, powerful game. It is my favorite game of all time despite the negative critique I had for it. I recommend that everyone and anyone pick it up, and they have a sequel coming out. Oh my lord, it's a sequel to the best game ever coming out next year. Yeah, it's a good game. And thank you all so much for watching this review, and remember, Avocado dies in Final Space, and I hope he's not coming back, otherwise Olin Rogers owes me a box of tissues over his death. I'll see you on the flip side. Goodbye.